I see it really in terms of a constant reminder of our presence and fighting against bigotry and oppression, and also support. Gays, lesbians, and transgender do come from other minorities, and so they have a double oppression. And certainly that was a big issue in the early history of the movement, was the issue of women and lesbian, gay women.
Reaction of Toronto Bathhouse raids was an absolutely world-defining moment that changed everything. I mean, it's a cliche to talk about things changing everything, but it really did. Everything that we see around us today that we think about connection with being gay or lesbian in particular, but even to some extent trans, grew out of that cataclysmic moment when everybody's worldview, a very large number of people's worldview, just fell apart.
Society is changing, and I think society is recognizing more gender and sexual variance, and that is becoming more the norm. The whole rise of the trans issue in the last 10 years is really symptomatic of both of those, because one of the biggest places where we see in mainstream society the whole issue of gender being discussed is around gender variant children. The question of cultural identity, I think in some ways trans identities have been threatening to there's the problem of pluralism in the queer, the queer community is not just a happy place where everybody gets along. There are plural identities, and I think there are tensions among identities in that idea of cultural recognition.
So queer liberation is part of something larger, which is this movement towards liberation. So trying to imagine societies that are built on social justice, where people really feel true safety and security, where people feel that they're part of something. That's like a larger project. That involves addressing a lot of different things, including homophobia, including transphobia, but also things like money and class and the militarization, industrialization of our societies, but it's one part of a larger movement. So I think, if you try to imagine an endpoint where we sort of have achieved what it is we're working towards, there really isn't an endpoint unless the other things are also achieved. So you can't really change something for one community or for one group without changing things for everybody.
Moving forward, I think some of the biggest hurdles still left to be overcome is one of societal acceptance. So yes, our rights are enshrined in law and they are codified, and there is a legislative framework that protects us. But have attitudes changed on the ground that much? Especially attitudes within families, within institutions that provide service. I don't believe that simply placing the Ontario Human Rights Code in a plaque on a wall says that your workplace is free of discrimination, and that people are not being harassed. The same can be said about the school system. Currently, there's a debate, that's sort of raging on about the Catholic school system right now in Toronto, and the Catholic school system has somehow, managed to do everything it possibly can to continue and perpetuate this form of discrimination against their LGBTQ students. And how is it that we have these rights, in the Constitution and in the Ontario Human Rights Code, and yet they have somehow, gotten away with what they have gotten away with.
Queer liberation is a recognition that most queer and trans people will not be free just because white middle class people are free. because the majority of us still have to deal with things like classism, sexism, xenophobia, etc. So queer liberation is a question and a challenge to all of those systems, resisting and coming up with alternate strategies for the existing system.